Our Living First Language platform harnesses technology to empower communities to become change makers, teachers, and language experts. It is often forgotten how languages are the carriers of human cultures. Each distinct language plays an important role in the transmission of knowledge, law, kinship, and connection to country, as well as the key expression of self and place. Advancements have made it possible to apply digital technology to assist with the preservation and use of our nation's first languages. The Living First Language platform is a practical example of how technology can serve to not only support communities and their languages, but also provide a pathway for meaningful engagement by both Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples.
The common lament I hear from elders across Australia and across the world is basically the fear of language loss. For me, it's a privilege to be able to speak to elders as I go across Australia, and they continually say they are worried that their language is becoming dormant or endangered. And without exception, these first language speakers acknowledge that transgenerational capacity to speak, to read and to write in their languages is transformative. It's important because it has an impact on health, well-being, education, and the future of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people's participation in society.
Speaking in our mother tongue is a way of helping all of country and life to speak. It is giving voice to the things that otherwise we might mistake as silent, like the rivers, the mountains and trees, the lizards, the birds, the nightjars, the hawks. Indigenous languages describes the earth we live on in all of its complexity and brilliance. We also know that the mainstream and dominant way of developing economies and general development approaches does not work. Indigenous societies across the globe also hold the devastating experiences and ongoing impact of colonisation in common.
Bunuba is a First Nations group, like many First Nations group in Australia, and we suffer and struggle with all the great issues that have been recorded in coronial inquests, being recorded in the Royal Commissions, and out of all the recommendations that have come out of every report that we see is that people are losing their identity and their sense of place and their sense of identity. And so for us, it's being able to revitalise and strengthen our culture so young people engage and that they feel like they want to be someone in our society. And I think that if we get all our efforts to do that and to arrest the social mayhem and the social disorder that's happening in our communities and the loss of young lives in our communities, I think that can only be done by the restoration and the revitalisation of culture and language, and in our case, the Bunuba language.
When we first developed the Living First Language platform, the ALNF had ideas as to why it was needed. The first was that our languages were being lost, but secondly, that using first languages to be able to teach English is so important for the future of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people and Indigenous peoples of the world. There's an urgent need to preserve, revitalise and share these languages. There's a critical demand for culturally relevant resources created by the community, with the community and for the community. It's self-empowerment, it's self-determination. So we set out to create a digital platform that helps communities rapidly and collectively capture, curate, explore and share languages as a vital living resource for many audiences, particularly the owners of the languages. Advancements have made it possible to apply digital technology to assist in the preservation and use of our first languages. The Living First Language platform is a practical example of how technology can serve to not only support communities and their languages, but also provide a pathway for meaningful engagement by both Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples.
When we set out to develop the Living First Language platform, accessibility was forefront in our mind. We wanted to create a platform that was easily accessible on a phone or on a tablet or on a laptop or a desktop. It didn't matter if you were on Android or iOS, Windows or Mac. It didn't matter if you had a 5-year-old phone or something that was brand new. So we wanted to make sure that it was accessible by all people working in language and in the community. And we also wanted to make sure that as we developed the platform, that each language had their secure and controlled database where they collected their recordings and the language and the stories. But we also wanted to make sure that every time we updated the platform, all languages on the platform benefited from that evolution of features. And that's what we've developed. This highly adaptable, lightweight system that's accessible and that's continually improving over time and benefiting all the languages, whether they're newly on the platform or been there for a few years.
The Living First Language platform leverages so many things. It is another critical way of preserving and bringing our languages to life in everyday life. Having highly interactive apps helps to bridge the digital divide. It helps to close that gap and bring our languages healthily and with full vitality into our the next century. It is an absolutely critical tool to document and to continue to use our languages so we can strategically develop the economic, social, and environmental systems that will benefit all of our peoples. I think it is a wonderful way of connecting young people with language use and engaging with elders to put our languages into highly interactive technology.
One key aspect when developing the Living First Language platform was to allow for innovation and creativity. And what's really exciting about the Bunuba community is they took that on board, and what they wanted to do is to surface their language to other audiences, to many diverse audiences. And one of those audiences is tourism onto their land, and to use language as a vehicle for education for those who come to their land to explore the beauties and explore the intricacies of Bunuba country. And so this is an exciting opportunity to see how a community, by curating their language, can surface it and share it and have flexibility and innovation over how that language is experienced by many people.
We have 60 to 80,000 visitors come to our country, travel through our country, and one of their greatest desires is to learn about the culture of the country and the culture of Bunuba people. And in many times, they don't get that opportunity.
Bunuba leadership was looking for a digital roadmap that placed language and culture at the centre. They wanted to have control over the curation of their language, but also to have the freedom to be able to share this knowledge in different platforms and with different audiences. For example, they wanted to use it as an educational tool for land management and for cultural tourism.
Tourism can use language, culture, and our connection to country in so many diverse ways. It showcases the incredible breadth of our languages and our amazing navigational abilities written across the land. The opportunities are endless. And of course, this is woven into education. We need to maintain and teach our knowledges through our education systems so they can be a part of tourism and developing these culture and country-based economies. We also need training courses to help our people teach and translate these knowledges to visitors and to tourists coming onto our lands.
For us, the Living First Languages platform was great for us. It provides the core of our whole digital strategy that once built and once established and once we get all knowledge of our culture and language into this platform, to be able to then have by access both digitally, online, but also to be able to utilise those services on country, both in teaching and learning and recording and storage of future knowledge, is a great opportunity for our Bunuba people.
I'm often asked, why is it significant to assert the importance of the inclusion of Indigenous languages across public policy areas that are more than just education, such as healthcare and wellbeing, environmental action, science, tourism, etc. As we've seen with the Bunuba project, it is so important to include Indigenous knowledge, culture and learning systems into mainstream. These are also key themes expressed by the Los Pinos Declaration and are key to the up-and-coming International Decade of Indigenous Languages. Bunuba created an employment opportunity for their people to develop their local economies, and all based around the Bunuba language in the front and the centre. A great example of what can work if we work together, and how language and culture does have economic value for communities.
I think that we could lead the way with many other First Nations groups in Australia and the world in providing that opportunity for non-Aboriginal people to non-Indigenous people to be able to come and learn and understand the complex nature of what we're dealing with, both from a intergenerational trauma point of view, but where we are finding new ground in changing the way both our people think and about how our young people think, and being able to provide services that so that they can enjoy themselves on our country and be immersed in the Bunuba culture.
The importance of our Indigenous languages and cultures to developing sustainable systems points to our situation right now. Many colonial forces have come full circle, from denying our existence to waking up to the fundamental importance of Indigenous knowledges, their values, and the sophistication. And that knowledge exists across a spectrum of sectors, from navigation, land management, life of the oceans, information of astronomy and space, and so many things known which are contained within our first languages and cultures. I can see all of our peoples engaging in these new and old economies and being part of an innovative and engaging education system that ensures that they can grasp opportunities within these new economies, that they can see a place for them. They can create what that looks like. I honestly believe the opportunities are endless. And I believe it begins with supporting these initiatives to revive our languages and to ensure that it becomes a part of everyday use and is embraced by Western society as containing the knowledges we all need to move forward into a healthy future.